Class is now in session. I am Professor Hockey, and today we'll be discussing some pretty exciting and also very interesting news coming out of the San Jose Sharks camp today, and that is that they have signed second-rounder Igor Chernyshov to an entry-level contract. Now, this name doesn't really carry as much weight as the couple of first-rounders that the Sharks had a few weeks ago, Macklin Celebrini at that first overall pick, as well as the 11th overall pick, Sam Dickinson, but that does not mean that this isn't a strong selection for the Sharks. Chernyshov, even though he was a second rounder, was not only the 33rd overall pick, which is the first pick of the second round, but also he was expected to go at some point in the late teens to early 20s in the first round, but ended up falling those few slots for the Sharks to pick him up at 33. So this is a player who has the potential to be a steal in this draft, kind of like Quentin Musty was in the 2023 entry draft. But it is not only his positioning that makes this an interesting signing, but it is also the situation that he currently found himself in before this deal was made. Now, over these last few weeks, the Sharks have signed a few entry-level contracts. When it comes to Sam Dickinson's, his didn't really change much either way because he was an OHL player. Him getting an actual professional contract doesn't really alter his future all that much. When it came to Celebrini and Will Smith, that was a bigger deal because of the fact that it marked the end of their amateur career and the beginning of their professional career. They could not go back to the NCAA and instead would be playing in the NHL or the AHL for this upcoming season. Chernyshov is in a very interesting position because last year he was playing overseas in the KHL. He started the year in the MHL, which is the minor leagues of the Russian leagues, but then he got promoted up to the KHL where he played a decent chunk of the season, and while he didn't have a ton of success, he did manage to hang around up there, did score a couple of goals as well, which can mean some good things. But the real important fact to point out is that he still had another year left on his KHL contract, and we know from in the past that many Russian players, while they usually do eventually make their way over to the NHL, they can at times spend a year, a couple of years, multiple years hanging around still in the KHL before making that jump overseas. You look at someone like Kirill Kaprizov, drafted by the Minnesota Wild, it took him about 5 years to eventually make his way over to Minnesota. You take a look at Matvei Mishkov, he did have a longer term contract, still took a year before sort of breaking out of that, and Chernyshov is in a similar position to him. With that 1 year left, it was expected that he would remain in his home country for that year before making the jump over, and yet by signing this entry-level deal, it is confirmed that he will come over to North America and he will play under that San Jose Sharks umbrella, keeping him very close to the actual heart of the team instead of kind of being further away where the Sharks wouldn't be able to keep as much of a close eye on his future development. And what this really shows is a high willingness for Chernyshov to want to be on the San Jose Sharks. And this was a big deal for Mike Grier. You want to be able to pick up players, especially on a team that has been so bad like San Jose over these past few years. You want to be picking up players who actively want to be on your team. And so for Chernyshov, not only this being a potential steal in the draft, but also a player who really wants to clearly be in San Jose, this could end up being a very big selection for the Sharks, and honestly just continues the potential franchise-altering 2024 draft for San Jose. You look back at, let's say, 2017 for a team like the Dallas Stars, that was a draft that really changed the direction of their franchise. They got their number one defenseman with Miro Heiskanen, their number one goaltender with Jake Ottinger, and their number one forward with Jason Robertson. The Sharks here in 2024, the chance to do something similar. They don't have that number one goalie, but potential number one defenseman in Dickinson, a potential number one centerman, franchise centerman in Macklin Celebrini, and a potential solid top six winger in someone like Chernyshov. This could be a draft we absolutely look back on in 5 years' time and say, wow, did Mike Grier really pull something off there? And this entry-level deal, getting him to come over here to San Jose a year earlier than expected, is a nice first step. It doesn't necessarily mean anything big. There's no real conclusions that you can draw from this for him as a player. He could very well develop into a star just as much as he could develop to be a complete bust. But it does show that excitement for him to be a part of this organization, which is always quite nice to see. When it comes to his future, when it comes sort of in relation to the San Jose Sharks, it is extremely unlikely he ends up making the team this next season. It would take an absolutely Herculean effort through the training camp to even get in the conversation of being on the Sharks starting 12. But he will obviously be a very nice piece for the San Jose Barracuda, considering he's already used to playing in a man's league there in the KHL for the chunk of games that he had. And it'll likely take a year, probably even a couple of years, before he is more so a real challenge for a roster spot. But it's still a very nice signing here for San Jose as they continue to knock down names on the list of their draft picks from 2024. And like I said, this could end up being a huge offseason for the team. Class dismissed.